Flex alerts have become increasingly frequent over the years. Issued by the operators of California's electric grid, the alerts call for people throughout the state to conserve power during peak hours, usually on extremely hot days. If demand on the grid is expected to go over its capacity, the state triggers rolling blackouts like those in the summer of 2020.
Droughts, heat waves, and massive atmospheric rivers, all of which are made worse by the climate crisis, have meant constant threats to our electrical grid.
With climate change expected to stay an issue for the foreseeable future, plus more demand expected on the grid with the state's upcoming goals of all electric vehicles, new resources have been focused on improving the California electric grid.
The Department of Energy has awarded $200 million to 9 states and 3 tribal nations for grid investments, including $67.5 million to California.
The funds come from President Biden's Investing in America agenda. U.S. Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm said in a press call Monday that the funds can be used for critical upgrades.
Undergrounding or fireproofing equipment or connecting microgrids, which can offer backup power for critical services.
UC Berkeley professor Severin Borenstein is on the board of governors for the California Independent System Operator, which runs the grid. He says that while the attention and concern focus on the issues the grid faces are welcome, it's just not enough money.
Utilities in California are planning to spend somewhere around $10 billion a year in order to meet this challenge. That's not forever, but for the next few years at least, we're talking about huge investments. So $67 million helps, but it's a pretty small drop in the larger need.
While attention continues to be placed on the grid's future, there's still a major focus on its present. Though it's been a mild summer so far, Borenstein points out that it's far from over.
This coming week will probably have slightly higher strain, but still shouldn't really be pushing the system. But of course, the big problems come in late August and September.
This is the end of the beginning. Welcome to today's show. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't subscribed to my 2 backup channels, that's right, 2, I added another one over the weekend. Please do so now. They are linked below. I am 1 strike away from not being able to upload for a couple of weeks and then termination. So if you like the daily content, please take the time. Please do me that favor. Pause it now. It helps me out a lot if everybody just goes and subscribes to it so I don't have to worry about constantly having to announce these things to people. Hopefully sooner or later I won't have to announce it in the majority of my videos. But please do me that favor and subscribe now. Get a look at this article from the LA Times. Would an occasional blackout help solve climate change? Well, we know that that's part of their plan. I mean, we've seen it in the UK, and they're obviously nervous to bring attention to it here in America because they know Americans probably aren't going to put up with this, especially the whole climate agenda, which, again, it's frightening to me how little amount of people actually understand the climate agenda that are actually buying into it. I mean, you go on CNN, you go on the Weather Channel, the main story is like record heat waves. Where? Oh, in Death Valley. That was one of the articles I saw the other day. Oh, record heat wave. Well, it is called Death Valley because, it's ridiculously hot. It wasn't 500 degrees, so then I might become a little suspicious. But we do know through geoengineering they have the ability to manipulate weather. They obviously are causing droughts all over the world on purpose when they have the ability, of course, to cloud seed and actually make rain so that we don't have droughts and don't lose crops. But why would they do that? They want us to lose our crops, of course, and they want to dry up all the lakes so that you could become dependent on them for food and water, because then they could really control you. And these people are psychopaths, and that's all they really care about. So this article is talking about exactly what they're doing around the world, which is creating blackouts. So the article is using, of course, LA Times. It's just a propaganda machine. It says, what's more important, keeping the lights on 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, or solving the climate crisis? And people don't realize it's not just about making our lives a living hell. It's about submitting over to them technology where they have the ability, if you're in a prison cell, okay, and you're a prisoner, you can't ask for can you turn the air conditioner up? I'm a little hot today. Could you put the heat on? I'm freezing. I'm shivering. I don't think you have that, ability, right? Because you're under their control and they're controlling the thermostat. Well, that's exactly what these sickos want to do here. So they say it's about solving the climate crisis while they're all living these in overabundance with the amount of cars they have. I mean, it's amazing that some of these people like Biden sit there and talk about the climate. I don't know if anyone out there saw, I think about how to strike when this happened, but there was even some woman who went in for, she's some face of the climate movement, and she went to go speak somewhere. She flew in, of course, on a private jet and then got off the private jet in a car. Then the car parked up the road about half a mile away, and she got onto a bicycle to make it look, of course, like she cares about the climate, because these people are all frauds and liars. And there's a special place in hell for all of them. So the article goes on to say, that is in many ways a terrible question for reasons that we'll discuss. But it's been on my mind as a ferocious heat wave roasts California and other states as I've watched Glendale respond to a Syria Club lawsuit over the fate of the city's gas-fired power plant just across the LA River, blah, blah, blah. I sat down in a dimly lit courtroom in downtown LA last week as lawyers squared off. An attorney representing the Sierra Club argued that Glendale officials had exaggerated the need for the gas plant as they urged the city council to spend an estimated $170 million to keep burning fossil fuels. An attorney for the city countered that the investment, which the council approved in a 4-1 vote, is desperately needed to provide reliable electricity to Glendale's roughly 190,000 residents to avoid blackouts. So what people need to understand is that, it's not even so much so about having control over your thermostat as much as it's about having total control over your life, right? So people think that's like, oh, well, okay, I'll turn the power off here and there. Well, this is all based on the carbon footprint. Okay, they've constantly talked about this thing called the carbon footprint, and it's like people don't understand what it is. It's total surveillance. And you might say, well, we're already under total surveillance. No. This is surveillance to the point that they're going to monitor, kind of like how they've conditioned people with the iFit and all those things that they wear in their wrists and track every step they take. You don't think that conditioning is for the carbon footprint? Of course it is. And for those of you that don't understand what it means, they're only going to allow human beings to be able to go a certain amount of distance every day. You're going to be locked in your homes to help the climate, of course. And they're going to be the ones who monitor you. And if you go over your carbon footprint, you will be taxed. That's right, taxed. And it's not just about money. They'll tax you in other ways. You won't be allowed to buy groceries. You won't be allowed to use a car. It won't turn on because you'll have an electric car, and they'll thus have control over the vehicle, which is what they want so badly. You will not be able to leave your home. Why? Well, your home is going to have smart technology in it, so it's going to lock you inside, just like all the predictive programming we've seen in movies. So one of the ways they start conditioning us into this, and of course this will work with all the hive minders, is talking about making blackouts a normal thing. Once a week, turning it off your power. So they say just under 500,000 homes and businesses lost power for as little as 15 minutes and as long as 2.5 hours on Friday evening when temperatures in California hit record highs, blasting their air conditioners. And even as the sun went down, the solar farms stopped producing power the following evening. Another 321,000 utility customers went dark from anywhere from 8 to 90 minutes. The rolling outages were short and contained, relatively speaking, but the political reaction was swift and dramatic. So again, they're going to shame people into this, just like they shame people into other stuff recently that they were telling you to put in your body. They will shame you into this to the point where if you're willing to do it and your neighbor's not, your neighbor's a horrible person. Your neighbor should not be a part of your community. In fact, they'll convince these psychopaths, because they're psychopaths, that you should not be allowed in society anymore because you're not doing what's needed. So they'll begin, after doing this with rolling blackouts, they'll begin saying the government should have control over this and there won't be a way that you can go against it. So in other words, if your neighbor's dumb enough to do this and shut their electricity off for a whole day in the middle of the summer, and you're not dumb enough to do that, they'll say, look, he's disobeying. He's got his power on. He's got his air on. He's not doing what's right for the community. We should sign off so that Big Brother has control over all this. That way, every Friday from 12 to 6, all of our power goes off, right? And it just starts there. That's how this whole thing works. It starts there. People don't realize that, listen to the irony of all this stuff, right? They constantly are telling us that we need to go electric, right? They're telling us that we need everything electric. We got to get rid of everything gas. So everything's got to, be electric, and everything needs to be solar powered, right? That's what we constantly hear. Okay. Well, where do you get the power for solar powers? Oh, from the sun. And what is the White House and Bill Gates and all these guys talking about? Oh, blocking the sun. So how do you think your electric vehicle's going to run? How do you think that your solar powered home is going to function when there's no sunlight coming in? Because they're blocking the rays from the sun. Oh, right. nothing will work. That's exactly what they want. People need to realize that these people absolutely hate us. They hate human beings beyond belief. Think of the worst serial killer documentary you've ever seen in your life, okay? And multiply that by 1 trillion. Okay, so you might say, wow, this serial killer guy, it's really sick. He really hates people. Or this guy targets women and he hates women because something happened to him in his childhood. Okay, well, these people don't just hate women. They don't just hate men. They hate white people, black people, Hispanic people, LGBT people. They hate them all. They're not on anyone's side. They pretend to be on people's side because they give them a wall of protection. And that's exactly what we have right now with the Communist Liberal Party, who's protecting the government instead of working with other citizens, despite whatever their race is or whatever their political affiliation is. And these people look at the politicians now like celebrities, and it's frightening. So California is obviously the perfect place for this to start. Now, we've seen Gavin Newsom, and all these people constantly talking about how they're going to ban gas-powered vehicles. You're not going to be able to buy one in the state. Probably won't be allowed to drive one in the state. They'll get rid of all the gas stations, too. And we're going to see states that go completely green and, of course, go completely useless. And then the mind control zombies will go to these states. These states will be pro-abortion. These states will be pro-castration of children. Everything that really we could look at as insanity, these liberal states will support. Thus, they'll herd people into those states, and then the red states will be the other way, okay? But these states, specifically California, are going to be the beginning testing runs because they know that they're not going to get away with this stuff in Texas. They're not going to get away with this stuff in Florida. They're not. They're just not. But in the hive mind states, they can get away with it. So there'll be stomping grounds. Just New York City will be another because New York City is never going to flip, just like California is never going to flip. So this is what they're preparing people for. The article goes on, it says, I found myself asking, would it be easier and less expensive to limit climate change and its deadly combination of worsening heat, fire, and drought and flood if we were willing to live with the occasional blackout? I love how they go from drought to flood. And none of these people who, of course, work for the LA Times or any of these huge, newspaper outlets have a brain cell in their head. They aren't familiar with cloud seeding. They think it's a conspiracy. You bring up Operation Popeye, they won't even answer it, even though it's a documented CIA, or just say it's a military operation that we used in Vietnam, right? These things are documented. So you would say, well, why do we have droughts if we have the ability to create rain, right? But they won't ask those questions because it doesn't fit into their enslavement agenda. And these people obviously love and believe in Big Brother so much so that it's, well, sickening. It's funny, you could identify liberals just based on how they look, and conservatives based on how they look, like they fit into the stereotype. It's really unbelievable. It's gotten to the point where it's frightening. But the article goes on to say, I'm not talking about long-term future of sketchy power supplies. Plenty of studies have found that keeping the lights on with 100% climate-friendly electricity is entirely possible. So this oxymoron is telling us that if we switch to climate-friendly electricity, which would mean solar power, they're not going to think far enough to think about the government talking about blocking the sun, even though we've seen it. I covered the predictive programming with The Simpsons. We've seen it in other movies before. And we've even heard Bill Gates openly discuss that they want to block the sun. And they want you on solar power electricity. So is anybody confused? I mean, clearly these people are confused who are writing these articles, or they're just brain dead. I mean, it's one or the other. So which one is it? Right? Because they're talking about we don't have to turn the lights off for 24 hours if we all get climate-friendly electricity. We can make it entirely possible. But what about when there's no sunlight? What about when we get rid of all this stuff that you say is so bad, and then you don't realize that the carbon emissions that they want to eliminate is us? All right, these people will never, ever think that. They have been completely programmed. It's really, it's a scary thing to see. It's a scary time to be alive because of the stupidity that's around us. It's very, very frightening. So this is seed planting in the LA Times, of course, for a future where, well, we'll turn the lights off and we'll that's how it starts, right? Would you willingly turn your power off? And then you'll see the, what do they call these people? I can't think of the term off the top of my head, but virtue signal, right? And we'll see these people out there who will do whatever the government says, and because they want to look like they're good people, right? They say all the things that the government tells them to say, all the things of celebrity, they just regurgitate it. So they'll shut their power off, but they'll see yours on, and that'll bother them because you're not doing it and they are. And they'll say, well, somebody should force them to do it. Because just because they're not a good person, our future generation shouldn't die off. So then the government will have the ability to step in with these, the Nest and all these types of things, with the air conditioner that control our homes, the Alexa, all of it. And they'll say, look, we're just going to do it for you because you're not doing it. And every week we'll have a blackout from here to here, and you'll have to deal with it. And people go, okay, sure. And they won't realize what's happening. And it's because of articles like this. It's because of these absolute, I don't even know what to call them as far as their thought process. I want to say it's just brain dead, really. It's so obvious what they're trying to do. It's frightening that no one's seeing it, but they're not. They're not. And that's one of the reasons they silence people like me. Because if you go listen to the alt-right, all they say is, well, they're a climate cult. They don't talk about the fact that this is enslavement and total control. Where we talk about government overreach. This is not government overreach. This is the government literally moving into your home with you and then telling you where you can and can't piss. That's literally what it is. So absolutely frightening. I thank everyone for being here. Again, a reminder, please subscribe to my other channels, link below now if you haven't yet. I appreciate everybody who's here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you as always and your families.